All right. As people are filing in, I think most everybody has been seeing Anthony in our webinars, and you're going to look closely, and it's not Anthony. It is Anna joining us today. She's going to be moderating. She'll jump back in with and during the question and answer time, and we'll be excited to have Anna this time
All right,
for
sounds
for
good.
for for the trip. So we'll see you back in a bit, Anna. Let me reorganize the window a little bit. And let me, if you may, if you don't mind, go ahead and go on to the chat. I always ask this, but go on to the chat and go ahead and post where you are calling in from. I'm always excited and encouraged when we have people from all over the United States and very often all over the world. So if you may, go ahead and post on the chat. Just give us a quick chat post on where you're calling in from. Could be the Bay Area, could be the East Coast. If you're the East Coast, it's 9 p.m. Giles is, on Atlanta time, so he might be ready to go to bed. But go ahead and post if you don't mind where you are calling in from. All right, Sunnyvale, Oklahoma City. Nice. There's only one thing to say. Oklahoma City, San Jose, New Jersey. Frisco, Texas is always well represented, Giles. Always well
Hmm.
represented. And
Always.
so, always. Wow, Cincinnati, Ohio. Fantastic. Menlo Park. Good to see everybody. Go ahead and keep posting where you are calling in from. And then, as mentioned before, we have a Q&A box. We will spare as much time at the end to answer any and all questions. So go ahead and post questions at any time, right from the start, and then Anna will jump back in with us and come back and we'll pose those questions back to Giles. So I want to do a quick intro. Excited to always have Giles Edie from Emory University on with us. He's always been. I've just personally enjoyed getting to know him. He's not only been on our webinar for a few years, we've been able to grab a few meals and just hear a little bit about Giles' story. Giles, I mean, on his free time is an emergency medical technician, right?
Yeah.
And so I always say he's saving lives in more ways than one, right? So he's doing a lot of good work, and maybe he doesn't have that much time now with two kids,
No.
in the no, but
No.
grateful that he's able to join us on the webinar again for this time and to answer any and all questions. Giles, if you don't mind, before we kind of launch into questions, I would give us an intro, tell us about maybe how you got started, what brought you here,
Yeah.
and what delights you in the work of admission.
Okay. Again, hello, I'm Giles Edie. I'm a senior associate dean of admission at Emory University. I did not grow up saying that that's what I wanted to be. It is not something I sought after. It came after me. So the way I got into it, I graduated from college in 2007. And had a corporate job immediately after graduating college. Went to work that job, and then 2008 happened, which was a little downturn in the economy, and the company that I was working for abruptly closed. And so when it closed, I was unemployed and I needed a job. And so I worked as a tour guide at my alma mater. And so I went back to my alma mater and said, okay, I was a tour guide. I think I can be an admission counselor. And so I petitioned, got the job as an admission counselor. The plan was to only do it for a year or two until I started grad school. But 18 years later and a graduate degree, I am still here. And what delights me in doing college admission is just seeing the how lives are changed by higher education. I see so many students every year coming in. Their minds are in one place and they have all these grandiose plans of being this specific thing, but then they get a college education and the grandiose plans change to something else more that's more fitting and grandiose as well. And so to me, just seeing that transformation in college is really delightful. It keeps me coming back every year to do it. So
I mean, just as a follow-up question, I mean, you see, you read a lot of apps, you see some students on the front end, but do you actually see the progression of some of these students as they go through college? I mean, do they come back and they say, "Hey, Giles, what's up?" I mean, how much connection, touch points do you have with these students?
I actually surprisingly a lot.
Mm.
Just with the community at Emory, we tend to know the people that come. So they might be working in my office. They might be the students that say, I was so inspired by what admissions did for me that I want to give back and I want to be a tour guide for the admission office. So they work as tour guides. I also teach a little bit at Emory as well. And so
Mm.
I teach the one of the first year orientation classes. And so I get to see the students that I made decisions on in the class. And then once you make that connection with them, you can't shake them off. So my class is only one semester, but I tend to have office hours year round. So as students
Mm.
reach out, Giles, can I connect with you to run something by you? I have those conversations all the time. From hey, this adjustment to college has kind of been strange for me. How do I adapt? Or, I took this class and it really piqued my interest, and I'm really thinking about altering my major course of study. Um, is this feasible? And I've even had the conversations. One of my favorite conversations is with the pre-med students who come to Emory with intention of being pre-med, and they are biology pre-med all the way. But then they find something along the way at Emory. And for instance, I had a student, one of my beloved students, she is from Honolulu and came to Emory and changed her major to dance. Wonderful dancer, graduated from Emory with a dance degree, still on pre-med track. Went back home to Hawaii and went to medical school there. Is now a physician. And so I love having those conversations with students to really help narrow down their path and really find their passions. And so I think she's doing orthopedic surgery, which is totally fitting as a dancer. So she's great. So I love having those conversations with students, and they just don't leave, Elton.
I've had a few of those. I've had a few of those experiences myself as well. But no, that's the more of the stories that you can study dance and go to med school. So
You sure can.
if you cut anything out of this conversation, maybe that's one of those things. Yeah, hey, let's launch into some questions, Charles.
Okay.
Again, thankful that you're here. Certainly it's 2025, and there's been a lot that's been going on since obviously the pandemic. The pandemic brought in a
Hmm.
lot of changes. A lot of schools, went test optional, and there's been a trend to go back to test required for a lot of top schools. But I mean, broadly, we can talk about testing, but I would love to see like what has changed for Emory since 2020, because there certainly has been like 2021, 22, even
Hmm.
some of these intermediate years have been some shifts in what the landscape has changed a bit. There are situations going on politically right now that may be changing, but tell me about what are some of the biggest changes since 2020 that is impacting Emory right now.
Well, you mentioned one of the changes. In 2020, we became test optional.
Mm.
And the conversation as is ongoing, whether or not we will be test optional, test required, or so forth, or even test flexible. The conversation is still happening, but what we have seen from becoming test optional is that it's really made Emory way more accessible to more populations that may have self-selected out of Emory in the first place. And what we found is that we enrolled the same kind of students with or without testing. And it's interesting. Sometimes the students that don't submit test scores when they're admitted, just just for funsies, we'll see, okay, did you take the test at all? And then we look at the test scores and we see like, oh, it was like the same as the students who did submit testing. Um, so we found that, I've always felt that testing has never been the make or break thing with our admission process, but being in a test option world, we've really been able to see that it doesn't alter much about the student that does come to Emory and do exceptionally well. So that's been probably the biggest change since 2020. Certainly, how we do our work has changed due to many federal mandates that have come down, namely, we're no longer able to see race in the admission process. Contrary to popular belief, race was never a way that we made admission decisions. People think that, we looked at race and said, yes, if you're this race, you're automatically admitted. Um, for us in most institutions of higher education, race was just a factor, but still, no matter the race, we want to know that you're prepared for the rigor that you're going to encounter. And if you're not prepared, then that's just that. So that's been a change. But also on the access side, access piece at Emory, we have really strengthened our financial aid at Emory. Just announced um, about a month ago is that for family incomes under $200,000, your tuition at Emory is now zero. We are really strengthening that financial aid budget, and we're loan free as well. So if you do receive need-based aid at Emory, it won't have student loans with it. So it's really been great in helping to increase access to Emory. So if a student is admitted, cost should not be a factor to keep them away. And they can really come and focus on just doing well. So those, I think, have been the biggest changes.
I want to cover the first two things you mentioned, just to kind of dig in a little bit more, just to make sure it's ultra clear, because I feel like
Hmm.
there are schools that have come out and very decisively said that they think standardized testing is important. Isn't, I mean, it's not everything, but certainly is, as an additional data point in the review process, a very helpful data point, with going so far as to say that we're going to include it as and we're going to become test required. And then other schools that have remained test optional. We did interview a couple schools prior to you. One of them basically coming out and saying you really should plan on taking your test, because
Mm.
even though we're test optional, it's really, we do consider it as an important data point. So I have interviewed you multiple times. I do know what your answer is in previous sessions, but has is this one of those things where Emory, I mean, certainly test optional in order to make sure that you are reaching a broader range of students and students that Emory would definitely want. But is there a change in the in the perhaps impression of what a test score might be? I'm kind of I think it's such a hazy thing for a lot
Hmm.
of top universities, and certain schools are saying different things about it. What really is Emory's perspective on it?
Well, the thing about testing in a test optional world, especially when people do report test scores, they tend to only report test scores that are skewed towards the higher end of things.
Mm,
And so that's all we have to report when we do have testing. And so it gives to me an inaccurate view of the applicant pool with their test scores. So there tend to be in a test option world, they tend to be skewed on the higher end of things. Um, but testing, as long as I've worked in admission at Emory, has never been a make or break thing. It's kind of a thing that I won't say we gloss over, but it's like, okay, test scores are good, like awesome. And good test scores, I mean, there's not really a one good test score. I mean, most students who do submit scores to Emory, they are above the national average for testing. SAT, the above the national average is somewhere like 1100 or better. ACT, it's like 28 or better. You're well above the national average at that point. And so we much rather spend time looking at 4 years of courses. So that's
mhm.
curriculum that you had in your school, your performance in the classes, more than we will on testing, because testing can be subjective. Example I give all the time. Um, One of the territories that I also represent for Emory is the Caribbean, where I see students with varying test scores. Um, Math section, typically across the board, great. But oftentimes in the critical reading sections of the test, it can sometimes be a little wonky, and it's not because the students don't read or write well, because in some cases they probably read or write well better than most of us in the States because they speak the Queen's English. But in coming to know more about them, it's context that they're missing, that we have with the tests in the United States, that can affect the score. And then also, I think about the things that some of those students have to go through to even take the test. I know, especially during the pandemic, tests were scheduled on certain islands, and then after the pandemic, they suddenly got canceled. And so, unless a student had exceptional means, they had to not take the test because they couldn't go elsewhere to take the test. So, if we just strictly looked for a test score in cases like that, I know we would continue to miss out on brilliant students, who just due to a lack of opportunity just could not do it. So, yeah, it is not a make or break thing for us. We much rather spend time looking at the curriculum and grades in your school. So,
Got it, got it. First thing, I want to congratulate you on having California and Caribbean. I mean, that's another conversation. But
that's another
great
conversation.
work on lobbying that one. But the second thing you brought up, which you didn't bring up the word diversity, but
Hmm.
you kind of alluded to that really. And I think the reality is that, and certainly it feels like an overheated word, which it shouldn't be. And
Hmm.
I think the reality is that and perhaps there is maybe a misconception that it really is admissions decisions are based on perhaps an ethnic group. But at the
Hmm.
same time, a school like Emory University still prioritizes wanting to have a diverse class, a
Hmm.
class where people are from different backgrounds. How do you do it then? If it's not a quota for perhaps an ethnic background, which seems a little bit antiquated, how else do you achieve some of the diversity goals that Emory might be interested in?
Well, for starters, we don't have a quota with it. It's
Hmm.
just we seek to enroll as many students from as many diverse backgrounds as possible, and not even thinking about race about it. When you seek students from different socioeconomic backgrounds, from different geographical backgrounds, and even experiences, the byproduct of that is a very racially diverse class. It's not something that you go to say that if you go to look for this race, you're going to get this thing. It's just syncing all those things together. You get a diverse class. And it's just something that we have always prioritized at Emory in making sure that we have multiple types of people on campus. If we have all the same people on campus, not much learning happens, because it's so homogenous at that point. And a big part of college is being exposed to different perspectives. So we make sure we put different perspectives in the class that we enroll. Like I said, the byproduct of it is a really racially diverse class. We can't see race. It's not something that we can see at all. When I open the application, it is not there. And we get race once the class is enrolled, and everyone's in the seats at Emory. That's when we see what the racial makeup was. It's not something that we can see at all. So,
Hmm. Okay. So, I mean, what I hear you saying is that
mhm,
there is maybe some intentionality with trying to build a socioeconomically diverse class, and
mhm,
therein lies opportunities to reach just different students from different backgrounds inherently, right? And so,
correct.
okay, all right, got it. All right, let's move on to other exciting topics like artificial intelligence. So, and then, but there. With that being said, I mean, there's a couple of things. Number one, I would love to hear about like what you are encountering as it relates to, as I mean, I don't want to say it's a mundane topic to say that students are using AI to write essays, but this seems like a very forefront kind of conversation and topic, and we'd love to hear I mean, we've asked other admission reps like, can you spot an AI essay, right? And so I would love to hear a little bit more about like how the team is perhaps approaching essays when you get something like that. Are you aware of it? Are you cognizant of it? Can you spot it? And what are your thoughts? And then maybe from the other side, there's been There also have been other university admission offices that says we are looking at integrating AI as part of our admission systems, not because we're trying to we're just trying to reduce time and make sure that we get
Hmm.
responses in time back to students. Like for example, like UT Austin has been delayed a few times, as
Hmm.
you probably know, and
Hmm.
and there's influx and outflux of staff, I'm sure, at admissions offices. So there's a sense of like how do we integrate AI for our own systems in order to perhaps streamline, maybe review apps maybe a little bit more efficiently, a little bit more quickly. So would love to hear how AI is impacting you from the read side and perhaps from the operational side.
Well, I will tell you, Elton, I remember doing this chat with you about 3 years ago, and you gave an introduction to Emory, and you put Emory into ChatGPT and you spit it out. And when you gave that introduction to Emory, I was like, wow, that is like impressive. Like Elton really did his research on Emory. And then you told me that it was ChatGPT. I 3 years ago could not spot the difference. But 3 years later, having interacted with it myself and seeing more of it, an AI generated essay, you can now spot a mile away, I think, with my colleagues. It reeks. I think that certainly using AI as a tool to write the essay is totally fine. But if you're using AI to write your essay to make a really good essay, you have to put more into it to get a good essay out. And if you're doing that, you're essentially writing an essay yourself. So it's glaringly apparent when AI is used in making the essay. Now, it's not to say it can't be used, because certainly it's a great tool for proofreading and even helping students to craft how they might transition things in an essay. So I am all for it being a tool, but not the thing that writes the essay. As far as the university's policy, we've adopted with AI is that certainly we know that students will use AI at Emory. However, if you are using AI strictly for your assignments, we do have AI trackers on campus, so it can let us know about how much of your work was AI driven. And
Wow.
if the majority of your work is AI driven, the policy that Emory is taking is that it's the same as plagiarism. So if you plagiarize work, there are consequences for that at Emory. So it is a tool, but it is not the thing that you use to write your original, or it's not original work, but you use to do your work. As far as on the other side, and we're exploring ways in our office to use AI, where we are very clear at the moment is that it cannot and will not replace the human voice, or because AI doesn't, I think, do a good job of understanding nuance and also context in addition to getting to know the person and emotion. And so that's why we have humans read the applications, because they're humans applying with different circumstances, different context. And so I don't think it's going to replace that anytime soon. I won't say that it won't at all, because AI has totally surprised me in its advent. But certainly we're still going to have a human voice with it. But where we're exploring AI is for things like helping to summarize school profiles. So, of course, we read high schools from all over the world, and sometimes we have a lot of good information about the high school that helps us to know them, and other times we don't. So, AI could be helpful in helping an admission office to surmise where the student is coming from. That might speed the read up a little bit so that we can get through the file a little faster. Even it might help to summarize a student's academic history. In some cases, someone's academic history might not be as straightforward as they took high school courses and they have a transcript. Um, Many of you guys take courses outside of high school. You do summer programs that have coursework involved with them. And so sometimes it's a puzzle piece for us to kind of put sequentially how things were done and help make sense for them. And then also, when you guys come in with credit from different colleges and so forth, we have to look and see if there's a course at Emory that directly correlates to it before we can give you credit. Well, we're looking to see if AI can help us to see, like, okay, this course that you may have taken at Saddleback relates to this course at Emory. That's ways that we might be using it, but we're still going to have the human touch and human voice with reviewing the applications.
Got it, got it. And maybe the last one before we get into a couple of specific, and I will promise to make sure we there's a lot of good questions in there. I'll save. I had an ED question, but I'm going to save it for Q&A because I think that's good. That's gonna be good times, Giles. So it's
Okay.
but before we get into some like Emory, very Emory specific questions, like sort of as we're programming and those kind of things. Obviously, there's been a lot of pressure, perhaps politically, from the Trump administration as it relates to a lot of universities, and there's been a lot of funding gaps and funding crises that universities have been facing. Is Emory facing any kind of similar pressure, and is that impacting undergraduate admission in any way?
So no impact to undergrad admission for starters. So what's happened is not affecting how we do our work at all. Where we have seen changes, certainly Emory was the recipient of quite a number of National Institute of Health grants that we use to conduct research, namely health science research at Emory. We lost a significant amount of NIH grants, of which the Emory University has absorbed to keep research going. And so, what that has meant for campus is a budget cut to the tune of about 30% on campus. We've had to tighten our belt a few places on campus, but what we've been very intentional about it not affecting the student experience, be it in the admission process or even while they're there. Certainly, it has meant um, hiring freezes on campus, staff raises, raise free, or we've not seen increases in raises at Emory, and even how departments operate. We've had to cut our budgets. So that's the impact it's had on us, but certainly not on the student. So
All right, so no raises or a raise freeze, unfortunately.
yes.
So appreciated. So let's get into a little bit. I think maybe one of the more it's both interesting opportunity and also confusing to a degree is this aspect, this kind of Emory Oxford kind of
Hmm.
dual identity experience and existence. So I'd love to I'd love to hear a little bit more from your perspective. I mean, we can certainly search online and kind of, read about the program itself. But what type of students are you looking for each of these programs? And and I also as a person who works with students, I do feel like there is like an admissions threshold difference between between the two campuses. But I know that's an oversimplification, but I'd love to hear it from the admissions side. Like what type of students are you looking for? Is there I mean, can someone be admitted to Oxford and not admitted to Emory campus, right? Tell us a little bit, shed us a little bit of light from the admission side, how you see the two campuses.
Okay, so certainly when one applies to Emory for undergraduate studies, they have to choose one of our two campuses for the first 2 years of their time at Emory. After those 2 years, everyone comes to the Atlanta campus, and that's where you start your major. So another note, no one applies to a major at Emory. You simply apply to one or both of our colleges, and then from there you go into your major. So with our two colleges, if you do apply to both campuses, you receive two distinct independent decisions. So the decisions have no bearing on each other, but they all lead to the same place. So that means that you can be admitted to one campus and not the other, or both campuses. So whether which campus to apply to, it really comes down to a personal preference. Um, I say that the same kind of students can thrive on both campuses. We look for the same things in applicants. It's just really down to what kind of vibe do you want for the first 2 years. Oxford College It looks and feels like a small traditional liberal arts college because that's exactly what it is. It is just first and second year students, only about 1,000 total there, with an average class size of about 17. So it is really designed to have a very intimate academic experience. Whereas the Emory College campus, located on the university campus in Atlanta, we enroll about 1,450 students a year on that campus with an average class size of about 25. That campus is among all the other graduate professional schools we do have on campus. So it really comes down to, do you want the big academic environment in the city, or do you want a smaller, more intimate academic environment that ultimately leads to the big academic environment in the city? So it is two flavors of Emory. One campus is not lesser than the other, and we won't consider you for a campus unless you tell us you want to be considered. So I see merits to nothing but merits to attending either campus. Either campus has opportunities that the other does not have. For instance, at Oxford College, we just rolled out a program where you can start your first semester at Oxford in the United Kingdom. So we have a London start with Oxford College, where you spend the first semester in London with a cohort of Oxford students. And yes, you do need to spend time at that Oxford as well when you're there. That's where Oxford College in Georgia got its name. So there's some kinship there. So that's a unique program that Oxford College has that you won't get on the Emory College campus. If you're someone who wants to be close to the research that's happening at Emory, you might find yourself on the Emory College campus where most of the research is conducted. But it's all one Emory. And so students on either campus can go back and forth and utilize any resource on either campus. It's just that those campuses are where you live and where you do your coursework, but the coursework is the same. So it's nothing different there. Even professors teach on both campuses. So it really is a personal preference as to what kind of vibe you want for the first 2 years.
Um, it's interesting because I think this is the first time I've heard about the London program,
Mhm,
which does harken back to some of the programs that Northeastern has been doing for their students, for first year
mhm.
students, with regards to studying abroad in that first semester or the first year. And certainly it's an interesting experience, and I think by and large for a lot of our Northeastern students, it's been a very positive experience. And maybe just a quick follow-up question on the Oxford is I think I mean I've had an Oxford student who's had an amazing experience starting in Oxford and finishing at Emory. But certainly there's some commentary online
Mhm.
that might hint at just some integration problems between, like, if you're spending 2 years in Oxford, there's maybe some dissonance with regards to kind of coming into the Emory College campus. I'm wondering, like, are there ways that Emory is, or things that Emory is doing to maybe bridge that gap a little better, to really kind of help integrate those students into the community in a more effective way?
Well, I think one of the most powerful things about it is that you're coming to the Atlanta campus with 500 of your classmates that you got to know at Oxford College as well.
Hmm.
So that's one way that it is a great integration to campus. But also, as I mentioned earlier, resources are open to you on the Atlanta campus as well. So we have students who participate in clubs and organizations on the Atlanta campus already in their years at Oxford College. That's another way that they integrate. We even have days where we bring students to Oxford, from Oxford to the Atlanta campus, to even see what their coursework is going to be like on the Atlanta campus, to meet the professors. So it's many ways that we try to get them integrated. I think it's more of a fear that people have before they do it. And then once they get there, they're like, oh yeah, like I'm with my peers that did the same thing. And personally, in a classroom setting, I can distinguish the Oxford students versus the Emory College students because they tend to be the more engaged students. They're always in the front row, and they're the ones that I can depend on that will ask the questions in class because that is what they've gotten to know at Oxford College. So.
Got it, got it. Um, let's 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 get into Um, let's maybe. I think another thing that I think has come up. I don't want to I don't want to overtly say it's like Emory's reputation, but certainly the two very high profile programs at Emory is students who want to be pre-med and go to med school, and then the business school at Emory is also outstanding, right? And so
Hmm.
so and then with that there's a certain sense of both academic rigor. A lot of students are very motivated. And then there's also a lot of your pre-professional business students who are very career-minded, and that tends to really dominate, from what I understand, dominate the culture at Emory. I think maybe another question with regards to just cultural fit. If I'm coming in and I'm not part of this ultra, maybe hyper aggressive like pre-med group, or I'm not trying to get into like one of the big five consulting firms, the moment I graduate. Like, is there a place for me? Like, what is the culture of Emory like?
Well, the culture of Emory, I think what you described is really on the front end. The students we do have are naturally really driven, and they come in day one ready to go. And people like myself and other faculty members, one of our jobs is to slow you down because we want you to take things as an order to how you do things. Um, I will tell a student, you're not here in college to become a doctor. That's why you're going to go to medical school. There are steps you have to go through to become a physician. And ultimately, one of the great things I know that the pre-health advising program does is it helps students to understand what it is in health sciences that they're actually interested in. For instance, I use my wife as an example. My wife went to college wanting to be a physician, strictly a physician, nothing else, and had never explored any other area of health science. But my wife has a very artistic background, and it was suggested to her that she consider dentistry. Had never thought about dentistry, but through her pre-health advising program, they sent her to a dental program over the summer. Absolutely loved it. And so today, my wife is a prosthodontist. Went to dental school and did another 4 years residency in prosthodontics. And so she's able to bridge the two things. And so one of the things that the pre-health advising program does is helps students find their actual niche. Some people aren't MD as much as they think they are. Some people are PhD. And so we help people decipher, okay, whether you're going to be the researcher or you're going to be the clinician. Both are very necessary and both need passionate people to do them. Even with other programs, we help people to see like, okay, I see it often with people wanting to go to law school. Okay, I just want to go to law school, but I don't necessarily know why. And so let me major in a humanity or social science to go to law school when we have students that we might find that they might be a good fit for law school in the sciences. So we do a good job, I think, of shaking things up for students to really truly find their passions. And I do think ultimately what you do get are very interdisciplinary students. They may be pre-med, they may be pre-business, or they may be business, but they also may be arts at the same time. They might be a social science at the same time. I've even seen students with a social science major who do go into business um, because a lot of these corporations will say, okay, we've got enough of the business students, but we're the philosophy majors that really add a lot to our corporations as well. Our medical school says the same thing as well. They're like, we're done with the science majors. We have too many of them. Where are the other majors that will be great doctors as well? So I do believe there's certainly a place for students with other interests outside of those that you mentioned. It's just those are the ones that in the front end are certainly big majors that we enroll. Um, and they make the most noise, I think, in the beginning. But we do shake things up while you're there and help students truly find their passion.
One last question before we go to questions from our audience is that I'll say this as a private counselor working with families here in the Bay Area. Um, I do feel like there definitely is a set of families who are very aware of Emory, but there's certainly a set of families who are not as aware of Emory. And to where it's like, I'm personally convinced that at Emory's an outstanding university. There's a lot of resources. It is good for a certain type of student, and but there's a little bit of like like some wavering name recognition among certain audiences, right? So I feel like I find myself always having to sell Emory, and
Hmm.
I remember having Pepperdine's admissions director on as well, and like we were talking about like what are some outcomes that Pepperdine's really proud of, and she was mentioning that they have an over 90% matriculation rate to med school. So Pepperdine students,
Hmm.
because there's one lady who like counsels every student who wants to apply to med school at Pepperdine. So I mean, maybe as a way to come back, like what are some outcomes for Emory that I think Emory's really proud of, that perhaps maybe sets Emory apart, that might like convince somebody who's listening who may not really know Emory maybe outright from the name, but maybe, oh my goodness, like like an inordinate amount of business students end up getting recruited into banking,
Hmm.
or maybe there's med school support that's really outstanding. What are some outcomes that I think Emory's really proud of?
Well, one of them you just mentioned, the med school acceptance rate is outstanding
Hmm.
at Emory. Emory is a major health hub as a whole. In the Emory University system, we have 11 hospitals. So five of them directly on our campus. Our next door neighbor at Emory is the CDC. So the
Hmm.
Centers for Disease Control, it actually is a research site for Emory students.
Hmm.
So those resources really aid our students in health sciences. So we have great outcomes there. But I think one of the best outcomes we have is that um, after graduating, within 6 months, we had something like a 98% placement rate for students into either employment or graduate professional schools. So in essence, we like to make sure everyone has something to do once they graduate, and that they're proud of too. So um, I think those are some. I thought I was leaving you there for a second, Elton.
We
Um,
got you back.
I,
We got you
you
back.
got me back. Okay. So those are certain some outcomes that we're very proud of at Emory. And I think one of the best outcomes too is that not only do we graduate students who are well educated and well prepared for their careers and their professions, but also we go to great lengths to make sure that we graduate
Mm.
good people who have taken really thoughtful, a really thoughtful journey of self to get to know self so that they are whole people when they leave and go into their professions, not just robots who are going to go do their jobs, but people who are passionate, who come alive when they're doing their jobs. I know if you're going to be my physician, I want you to come alive when you talk about medicine. I want you that I want it to mean that much to you. And so we try to graduate people with that kind of passion and fervor for giving back to the world.
Got it. Got it. Thanks, Giles. I appreciate it. So Anna, I'm gonna invite Anna to come back, and we have some good questions. So some of it's gonna be harkening back to our Oxford College conversation. Some of it is gonna be some Edie talk. But Anna, let's kind of go through some of our questions.
Yeah, for sure. So I guess on the ED topic, we have a question about ED1, ED2 admit rates this year. So they ask if you expect any meaningful changes in those admit rates this year, specifically considering the likely decrease in international student applications, among other factors.
The best answer I can give you is I do not know. Um, one, we have not started to read applications just yet, and the deadlines have not passed. So the first early decision deadline is November 1st. We don't know how many applications we're going to receive until that deadline. And then once we see the applications and we see who's in the application pool, then we respond accordingly. So just for everyone's edification, an acceptance rate is not something typically that an admission office sets, but it is in response to how many people applied to the institution versus how many seats we have available. In the past couple of years, we've been somewhere around 30% acceptance rate with early decision. We've had some very strong early decision pools to come through. And so last year, about 49% of the enrolled class came from early decision because we just really had a very strong early decision pool. Now, what that trend looks like this coming year, I don't know. The deadline has not come yet, so once it comes, we'll know more information at that point.
Just as a quick follow-up, is there a palpable admit rate difference between 81 and 82?
In my experience, it has been, and it's again, an acceptance rate is not what we set.
Yeah, understood.
It's just who applies. I tend to think that we don't see as strong of an applicant in early decision two. And
Hmm.
so if strong applicants came in early decision two, we'll gladly admit them. But more of the stronger and more honest students who want to be there because they are applying early decision,
Hmm.
we do see an ED1.
So if I were to translate your question or your response real quickly in a sense where like you're seeing sort of a higher caliber student coming on 81,
Hmm.
therefore more students will be admitted on 81, and on 82, maybe the pool is not as strong, so that perhaps maybe the admit rate might be affected because there aren't as many students accepted on that round. Is that correct?
Well done. Well
All
done, Elton.
right. Hire me on, Giles. Come on, for crying out loud. All right.
I guess kind of to bridge that gap, and then we had an earlier conversation about the Oxford Emory campuses, but I think some people still want some clarification kind of on how the application process to apply to these two different campuses works, including, for example, if you apply ED1 to Emory and then you're also interested in Oxford, but then you're only admitted to Oxford and not Emory. Are you still bound by ED1? Are you not? I think you mentioned earlier that they're entirely separate, but if you could go into the details about that.
Yes, so the application is the same application for both campuses. You just check on the application to which campus or campuses you like to apply. You can apply to one campus early decision, the other regular, or you can do both early decision if you like. If you do both early decision and you're admitted to both, you get to choose which one you want at that point. Um, if you do one early decision and you're admitted to that place early decision, just like any early decision plan, you're bound to go there. Um, but with the decision making, they're totally separate. So literally, if a student applies to both places, we'll make an Emory decision first, and then we'll go make an Oxford decision. Maybe we'll do the other way around. Sometimes we might do the Oxford decision first and then the Emory College decision. But the decisions never have any bearing on each other. And so that's the way we do it.
Great. I guess to continue on the train of things that we've talked about prior, there is a student who I believe is interested in pre-med. And they noticed again that Emory leads to a very high acceptance rate to med school after college. You talked about this a little bit, but can you go further into the opportunities? You mentioned the hospitals, your campus, on campus, but why is this acceptance rate so different from other colleges, perhaps? And are there any other special features or courses or resources that Emory offers in light of pre-med?
Well, I think one of the best resources is our pre-health advising. And not only are they advising on the things you need to do to maybe get into medical school, but I think one of the great things they do is advising on when students should apply. Um, the goal with them in the pre-health advising is that we want students to complete one application period, not multiple application periods. We don't want them applying multiple years to medical school. We want you to be able to put one application in and be your best application. And in some cases, students, it might not be that after 4 years that they are ready to go to medical school. So our people are really adept at knowing, like, okay, it might mean for you to get an acceptance to medical school, you might take a year after graduating from Emory, and you might do some additional research, or you might get some clinical experience, or you might do a post-bac program, so that we feel confident that you will have an acceptance to medical school when you do apply. So they're very good at making sure you know not only how to apply, but when to apply. I think that's one thing. And yes, our healthcare resources, and namely our own medical school, is very helpful in advising our students in what they need to do to be accepted into medical schools. Our medical school does accept Emory students, um, a small number, because it is a small medical school. Out of the 150 that they enroll a year, maybe 15 or 20 of them came from Emory. But certainly they are a good resource in our pre-health advising and to assist them in how to prepare our students to be accepted to some of the nation and world's best medical schools.
Sounds like a lot of hands-on essentially help there.
Yes.
We also have a question about college essays, so specifically about supplementals. They want to know if you have any particularly opinionated do or don'ts for answering the Emory supplementals.
Um, my advice for the supplementals is to answer the question. Um, there's no correct answer to the question. Just simply answer the question. If you answer the question in a few words, great. If you answer it in the maximum number of words that you can submit for it, awesome. Answer the question whatever you do. Now, what you don't do is cut and paste. Don't regurgitate something that I'm seeing that's on my website. Don't do that, which we have kind of controlled for that, being that the questions are not pertaining to anything at Emory. They really are questions that only you can answer because they kind of relate back to you. So just simply answer the question. Be yourself in the process. The more authentic to you who you are, the better you help us getting to know you and making that decision. So
Don't copy and paste.
no copy and paste. No.
It's funny. I don't know how you can copy and paste on those Emory supplement essay prompts. I mean, I've always enjoyed them. They've always been really interesting, and you guys always kept them short too. They've not
Yes.
been like 500 words on this and that. So thank
Hmm.
you, Giles, personally for that.
For sure, it's what is it, a 150 word limit?
Hmm.
Yeah. Um, some general questions about holistic review, I believe, of applications from a lot of different venues. So there's some questions about are online high school students' applications read with other online homeschool applications, or are they read based on their home location? How do you view maybe people coming from different backgrounds in that sense? Um, how do you look at a transcript that has changed so much over the years? Maybe if freshman year they have a pretty performance, but then over time you see their grades do better. How do you kind of tackle all these different situations in your holistic review process?
Well, the first goal in a holistic application review is to get context. Before anything else, you want to get context, be it where the student is coming from, what courses are available to them, and even kind of what their home environment is like. And that really helps to inform a lot of the things that we see in the application. So I know one of the questions you had was for pertaining to homeschool students. So we look at you in the territory where you're coming from. So if you are living in the Bay Area or the Caribbean or Hawaii or Alaska or any U.S. territory and happen to be homeschooled, I'll see your application. But my goal is to get context. What kind of homeschool that you're doing? Are you a part of an association, or is it strictly just you and your guardians doing that? I want to get that context to see what it is you're doing and then how well you're doing in those courses. Um, Also, with students looking at maybe poor performance in the earlier years of high school, we understand like we're not looking for perfection. We want students who are hardworking. I will say if there's going to be trends in grades, we prefer to see an upward trend as opposed to a downward trend in grades. We don't spend a whole lot of time looking at freshman year of high school because we understand that it's a really transitional year for a lot of students between middle school and high school. It's not the best indicator of collegiate success, but certainly as you progress, things need to be awesome. I won't say awesome, but just need to be good. They need to be your best work. I think, did I cover everything, Anna?
Yeah, pretty much. Thank you so
Okay.
much. I kind of rattled them off at you, so I appreciate you tackling all this. Um, and I guess There was someone who just wants to know, I mean, you covered it again a little bit earlier, but are there any that you didn't mention or that you want to expand on? Any big changes at Emory for this 25-26 admissions cycle?
I think the big thing is the financial aid piece. That has been huge for incomes under 200,000, tuition being zero. I think that's going to be huge. And if I had to be a betting man, I would imagine that we're going to see an influx of applications because of that. But again, um, it is the great unknown because our deadlines have not passed yet. So we'll see what happens.
All right, Alton, what do you think of remaining questions if we have the time?
Yeah, we have some really specific ones for you because I feel like this is I think these are kind of good questions for you and super specific. Um, and yeah, I'll throw it out because I do know the situation, and so the student has to is thinking about the two rec letters that two rec letters for the Common App. They're thinking about either a math teacher from 11th grade or a bio teacher from senior year, but the student is like a bio pre-med major. And
Hmm.
so we have sort of our own perspective on it, but I think from the admissions side, is there any sort of contour that you see among those two options that coming from your own perspective?
I say choose the one that can write you the best recommendation.
Yeah.
It's not about the subject so much because they're not telling me very much about your propensity for the subject most times. It is really about you, the student. How hardworking are you of a student? And I think you should choose the person who can do that the best. And it's not always in the
Hmm.
subject that you want to study. So it could
Got
be
it.
that
Got
class that you really had to work hard to get that A in. That
it. Hmm.
professor, that student, that teacher might not be within the subject that you want to study, but can certainly attest to how hardworking you are. So that's a good recommendation.
What are you looking for in a rec letter? Let me ask you. Like, you probably read a ton of these rec letters. I
Hmm.
surmise that some of these rec letters will sound the same.
Hmm.
But what are you looking for exactly in a rec letter?
Well, I look for trends in rec letters, and when I say trends, I don't just settle with one rec letter
Hmm.
because it's one person's opinion. But when I see the same kind of sentiments, multiple recommendations, okay, I'm understanding kind of what a trend is about the student and what they think about the student. When I do see um, maybe one rec letter says this and the other one says, it makes me ask questions. Okay, what's the disconnect here? So it's really more so trends than it is like the actual nuance in what the letter is saying. Now, it certainly jumps out when a letter is like, this student is like the best student I've ever had in my career. Like that certainly stands out. Like, whoa, okay, I need to look really close at this student. But it's totally fine. Most people won't have those recommendations, especially if you attend a large high school where you are one of hundreds of recommendations that these teachers are writing. Like, I get it. And most students who are admitted will just have those middle of the road recommendations. So
Got it. Yeah. So you're looking for when you say trends, you're looking for like, is the application and perhaps the academic record, the essays, and then the rec letter, are they sort of painting a similar narrative, if you will, or a
exactly.
trend,
And then
or yeah, yeah.
also multiple letters are kind of
Gotcha.
painting that same narrative. So
Okay. Cool. Cool. And Anna, do you want to throw out the last question?
Yeah,
Got time there?
sure. So
Yeah.
someone has a question. I think they're a tennis player who devotes a lot of time to that. So I guess in the vein of extracurricular activities,
mhm.
what happens if, you only have one really strong extracurricular activity, in this case, tennis, that might come at the cost of time for others. So what do you think about
Mhm.
this breadth versus depth for extracurricular?
That's awesome. That is awesome. We care more about the quality of the involvement versus the quantity. And the quality is whatever you determine it to be. If it means a lot to you, it means a lot to me. Um, to spend a lot of hours playing tennis, and you're probably really good at it. You probably are really accomplished at it. And to be accomplished, it takes a lot of dedication, a lot of time and energy, and just stick to itness to just be able to do that at a high level, which can translate to you being those same things academically. So it is not about the quantity, but the quality.
That's a relief, especially as a tennis player. I'm excited. That's good. That's good to hear. So,
Hey, and
um,
Elton, you liked this. Our tennis team won the national championship last year. So, you know,
hey, Giles, honestly, I'm keeping an eye on D3 tennis Emory because I have a student who's like a tennis player as well. So I've clicked on a few links. Don't worry,
okay.
I've kept up. But no, just hey Giles, appreciate you coming on with us. Thank you so much for taking some time. I know you've had a
My
busy
pleasure.
West Coast trip, and it's always appreciate you not just as giving a good glimpse into the admissions process, but appreciate you as a person and just being yourself fully on our show for so many years. You even remember me throwing you a ChatGPT intro of you, and
Yes.
good memory on that, man. So, all right, thank you so much. Appreciate everybody coming on. We have forthcoming on our webinar series. We do have likely some essay review webinar series, some other conversations. We'll get into extracurricular planning probably come near the end of the year. So stick around, keep an eye on the emails, but appreciate having everyone here. And thank you so much again, Giles. Appreciate it.
My pleasure.
All right. Take care, everybody. Giles, have a safe trip back tomorrow. And we'll talk. We'll be in touch.
Sounds good.
Thank you,
Okay. All
everybody.
right. Take care, everybody. See ya.
Bye.